In the vast abyss of the cosmos, amidst the stellar tapestry, lies the Milky Way, not just a river of stars, but our very abode. Envision a gargantuan pinwheel spanning eons, rotating in the void of space. A place born from time's earliest whispers, around 14 billion years ago. A dominion of starlight, nebulae, and cosmic wonders, housing not just celestial bodies but stories. Yours, mine, and even that untidy child from down the lane. Picture a canvas so wide, taking 100 millennia for a beam of light to traverse. Within it, our sun, a mere speck, takes 250 million years to complete its cosmic marathon around the galaxy's heart. And when night graces our world, those myriad twinkling eyes above, most are part of the Milky Way's sprawling limbs. This river of starlight was once an enigma to our ancestors, a milky stroke across the heavens, hence the galaxy's poetic name. But hold your breath for a twist in the tale. From the heart of this stellar expanse, a curious signal emanates. Like the dots and dashes of Morse code, there exists a mysterious message, perhaps a celestial whisper. Decades past, we spotted gigantic tendrils hanging ominously close to the enigmatic Sagittarius A asterisk, our galaxy's heart, harboring a monstrous black hole. Recent revelations have unveiled new tendrils, puzzlingly shorter, their orientations odd, reminiscent of spokes radiating from a wheel's hub. Though the tendrils share common traits, their origins are believed to differ. Towering vertical ones pierce the cosmos, while the horizontal siblings evoke Morse code's eloquence, the former magnetic, while the latter exudes thermal warmth. These baffling phenomena, though celestial in scale, may help unveil the secrets of our galaxy's central black hole. Yet, the mysteries don't end there. From the depths came another signal, frequent pulsations, unlike any celestial body we know. Its origin? Ambiguous. Some speculated to be remnants of a collapsed star, while others pondered the existence of an entirely unknown celestial object. And as if the galaxy wasn't enigmatic enough, a new conundrum arises. Our gamma-ray telescope unveiled an intense glow from the Milky Way's core. For a decade, this luminescence baffled minds. Is it the cataclysmic destruction of elusive dark matter? Or is it the dance of millisecond pulsars, neutron stars spinning at unimaginable speeds? Debates rage, with the pulsars being prime suspects, yet skepticism abounds. Some postulate it could be due to cosmic interactions, while others question the peculiar spherical congregation of these pulsars. The galaxy, with all its grandeur, remains a labyrinth of riddles. All we can do is persist in our quest, diving deeper into the enigma that is our celestial home. Within this vast cosmic theater, every revelation begets more questions, and every answer we unearth draws us further into an intricate dance of wonder and uncertainty. Each star, each pulsar, every tendril is not just a point of light or a phenomenon, but a chapter in the grand tale of our universe. We, as humble residents of this Milky Way, are constantly driven by an insatiable curiosity. With every tool we forge and every telescope we peer through, we seek to understand our place in the vastness, to decipher the messages encoded in the fabric of space and time. These mysteries, from the Morse code-like tendrils to the inexplicable gamma rays, are beckoning calls for humanity. They whisper to us of stories yet to be told, of puzzles waiting to be solved, and of our ever-evolving understanding of the cosmos. In the face of these revelations, we are reminded of how much there is still to learn. And yet, with every discovery, we inch closer to understanding the intricate ballet of the universe.
You know, many different things have nothing in common at first glance. The appearance of mysterious clouds over Stonehenge and the migration of wolves in Canada. Patterns on the wings of a Caribbean butterfly and strange footprints on the moon's surface. These are all random facts, but people can see connections in these events. Let's see how it can happen and where it can lead to. Imagine reading some crazy article on one of the unreliable sites, forgetting about it, and then beginning to notice small details in the world that might indicate that the information in this article is true. You realize you've learned something unusual, but for some reason, other people don't see it or don't want to see it. You try to tell them, but no one wants to listen to you. And some people even think you've gone mad. Let's stop for a moment and see what kind of article you've read. So, in 2017, one not-so-truthful site published a story about a ship from another planet called Black Knight that had been spying on people for 12,000 years. But not long ago, agents from a secret organization managed to destroy it. Sounds like absolute nonsense or a plot for a cheap sci-fi movie. Of course, you don't believe it. But a few years later, you find a story about Nikola Tesla. Let's fast forward to 1899. The famous scientist was sitting in his laboratory in Colorado Springs conducting radio experiments. Suddenly, his receiver caught a strange radio signal. Then, after a while, another one. The signals came in with the same time interval, as if someone wanted to send a message. Nikola Tesla realized it could be something from extraterrestrial civilizations that were trying to start a dialogue with people using the most universal language, math. He also reported about this event in a magazine at the beginning of the 20th century and added that he hadn't deciphered the message. Okay, now let's forget about it and see what happened next. In 1927, an engineer from Oslo, who was fond of radio devices, was sending signals into open space. He was surprised when, sometime later, the same signals began to return to his receiver. It was as if the signals bounced off something big and echoed back, or something received these messages and then sent them back to the sender to make an acquaintance. The man quickly reported his discovery to scientific journals, and perhaps someone connected this event with Nikola Tesla's words about strange signals from space. All this were just prerequisites for the Black Knight. But the most exciting events started decades later. In the 60s, Time magazine published an article that said that the U.S. had discovered a satellite orbiting Earth and using unknown technology. A couple of years later, Project Mercury astronaut Gordon Cooper reported that he had seen a strange object during his spaceflight. But the Black Knight became really famous only in the late 90s, when NASA published a series of images of a mysterious object. During the first flight to the ISS, astronauts noted weirdly shaped somethings and took several pictures. Then someone gathered all the facts, collected all the information about the black satellite, and discovered that it had been flying around our planet for more than 10,000 years. How did they figure it out? People managed to calculate the age of those radio signals that Tesla and the engineer had received. If this is true, the Black Knight appeared much earlier than the Sumerians in ancient Egypt. What if this satellite helped build pyramids and majestic temples? What if it had been watching over our development all this time and transmitting this information to another planet? What if mysterious images ancient people drew depicted the satellite? People began to suspect NASA and other space agencies of hiding information about the black object to prevent panic. And now, after having received all the data about the mysterious satellite, you might begin to suspect that the bizarre article may actually be true. This news is so improbable and ridiculous that no one will believe it. If you want to hide something, hide it in plain sight. And so, together with other enthusiasts, you start hunting for any information about the mysterious ship. You create forums, post photos of unknown objects, and become obsessed with this topic. You really believe in the reality of the Black Knight. Moreover, you don't want to question its existence. And people reading your articles do the same. Congratulations! You have become an ideal candidate for creating fake news in the yellow press. Such myths and urban legends seem attractive. The human brain feels pleasure when it finds fake secret information. The feeling of mystery, adrenaline, and shock can cause psychological addiction. That's why the stories about the Black Knight are still alive. Mysterious facts seem logical, and people stop seeing information that refutes their theories. The case of the Black Knight is no exception. The fans of this black object believe that Nikola Tesla received signals from some space civilization. But for some reason, they don't attach importance to scientific articles, which say that such radio signals could be sent by giant space objects like pulsars. A pulsar is a rotating neutron star emitting powerful electromagnetic radiation. Such radiation is often found in space. These radio waves don't imply the presence of a mind and a sender. The cosmos is full of such signals. The technology for detecting such objects were created in the 60s. Or maybe Tesla's device caught a signal coming from our planet. Besides, the scientists didn't say anything about the Black Knight. So why did people connect these two events? That story with the Norwegian engineer is still unexplained. Yes, his signals returned as an echo, but this had nothing to do with the flying object in question either. You might as well say that the satellite somehow influenced the Titanic. There's no logic in such assumptions. Strangely, no one connected the Black Knight with the Yeti or the Kraken. Now, let's return to that Times article about a strange object flying around Earth. It also stated it was a fragment of an American reconnaissance satellite. But fans of myths and legends apparently didn't notice this explanation. As for astronaut Cooper, who is said to spot some object during his mission, he actually saw nothing. He even showed a transcript with no reports about the black satellite. However, some believers in other civilizations keep silent about this fact. So, the main proof of the Black Knight's existence is the photos taken during the first flight to the ISS. The astronauts noticed this strange object and took pictures, but it wasn't a surprise for them because some part of the ship broke away during some work they did outside. It was a piece of thermal coating. The astronauts sent the photo to NASA, and the space agency assigned it a personal number, as it does with all such objects. A few days later, the Black Knight fell out of orbit and burned up in Earth's atmosphere. Almost all this information was recorded in official protocols. One of NASA's engineers, who knew the photographer of the black satellite, explained that those famous photos depicted an ordinary piece of the ship. There was nothing fantastic about it. But the fans of extraterrestrial rockets must have missed all this information. All these myths have long been debunked, and all the false facts have been refuted. But the Black Knight continues to live in many people's minds and on the pages of the Yellow Press. It has become a link between many reports of strange flying objects. Over the years, hundreds of stories have appeared about secret laboratories with extraterrestrial technologies, about NASA hiding secrets, and about creatures from other planets. And many people connected these myths with the black satellite. It has stopped being a real physical object. Now it's a cultural phenomenon. Remember how the main symbol of extraterrestrial civilizations was a flying saucer? It's not trending anymore. Today, the symbol is a black, weirdly shaped stone. Don't be fooled. The Milky Way galaxy, where we live, looks like a ginormous pinwheel rotating in space. It's a spiral galaxy that appeared around 14 billion years ago. It's filled with a lot of stuff: stars, nebulae, which are clouds of dust and gas, planets, asteroids, you and me and your parents and that messy kid down the street. You get the idea. And all these fan out from the center of the galaxy in long spiraling arms, a marvelous view. The Milky Way is about 100,000 light-years across, and it takes our Sun, along with all the solar system, 250 million years to make one revolution around the center of our home galaxy. Wow, that's a big lap. Look at the sky at night, and most stars you see there would be located in just one of the Milky Way's arms. Before telescopes were invented, people couldn't see stars clearly. They blurred together into a single white streak stretching across the sky. It looked like a river of milk, and that's how the name of our galaxy appeared. Now, let's get down to some recent and very exciting news. An international team of scientists have discovered something they've never seen before, hidden in the center of the Milky Way. It resembles Morse code. Is that our galaxy trying to communicate with us? In the early 1980s, astronomers discovered giant one-dimensional filaments dangling vertically near Sagittarius A star. That's our galaxy's central supermassive black hole. And recently, a new kind of such filament has been found. but they're much shorter and lie either horizontally or radially. In other words, they're spreading out like spokes on a wheel, going away from the black hole. Interestingly, even though both types of filaments do have certain similarities, researchers believe they most likely have different origins. The vertical filaments stretch through the galaxy, towering up to 150 light-years high. But the horizontal ones resemble the dashes and dots of Morse code. Scientists were beyond excited when they made this discovery, but they had to do a lot of research to make sure the structures indeed were what they looked like. They managed to confirm that the filaments were not random, but tied to the outflow of the black hole. Thanks to them, it became possible to study the spin of the black hole and the orientation of its accretion disk, a rotating disk of matter formed around the black hole under the influence of its immense gravitational force. But let's have a closer look at the filaments we've been talking about. There are around 1,000 vertical ones. They appear in pairs and clusters and are often either equally spaced or side by side like strings on a harp. As for their horizontal counterparts, they seem to be around 6 million years old. Now, both types of filaments are one-dimensional. They can be viewed with radio waves, and they seem to be tied to processes happening in the galactic center. That's it. The similarities end there. The vertical filaments are perpendicular to the galactic plane. The horizontal ones are parallel, but at the same time, they point radially toward the center of the galaxy and the black hole. The vertical filaments are magnetic. The horizontal ones seem to emit thermal radiation. The vertical filaments contain particles moving at speeds very close to the speed of light. The horizontal ones don't do it. There are way more vertical filaments, and they're much larger than those stretching horizontally, 150 light-years against 5 to 10 light-years at most. In any case, the new discovery is still filled with tons of unknown things, and astronomers are ready to start unraveling them. But the filaments aren't the only unexpected and bizarre phenomenon in the solar system. Some time ago, Australian researchers discovered a weird spinning object in the Milky Way, and it was unlike anything they had seen before. This object released massive bursts of radio energy 3 times every hour. And even though there are other objects that switch on and off, for example pulsars, such frequent pulsation has never been observed before. Some astronomers admitted that this discovery was pretty spooky, since no known object in the sky could do it. Research teams started working on the discovery and found out that the object is likely to be 4,000 light-years away from Earth. It's also super bright and has an incredibly strong magnetic field. And still, if you do all the math, not me, you'll discover that it isn't supposed to have enough power to produce such radio waves every 20 minutes. The theories about the origin of this mysterious object vary. Some experts claim it could be an ultra-long period magnetar, whatever that is. Others think it might be a white dwarf or the remnants of a collapsed star. But it also might be something we've never heard about, an entirely new type of object. But one thing is clear, astronomers managed to observe the signal across a wide range of frequencies, which means it has a natural origin and isn't something artificial. Now, there's another mystery about the Milky Way. Hey, what can I say? It's a mysterious place. Around 15 years ago, astronomers launched the Fermi Gamma-ray Space Telescope. Gamma rays are an incredibly high-energy form of light. That's why, when you observe the sky through the gamma-ray telescope rather than with your own eyes, the difference is dramatic. So, when astronomers started to use the telescope, they noticed that the center of our galaxy emitted much more gamma radiation than, for example, its outskirts. To put it simply, something is growing incredibly brightly right in the middle of the Milky Way. But the most perplexing thing is that no one has been able to find a plausible explanation for this phenomenon for almost a decade. Some astronomers suggested that the central region of the Milky Way was glowing with such intensity because the dark matter was getting destroyed there. While no one has ever observed dark matter annihilation, scientists have been hypothesizing about this phenomenon for a long time. Naturally, we wouldn't be able to see dark matter itself, but the process could be producing the radiation the gamma-ray telescope has spotted. That's how it could be happening. If particles of dark matter collided, just like ordinary matter particles do in particle accelerators, they would annihilate one another, and as a result, they would burst into a shower of other particles, including the ones that make up gamma rays. But that's where the problem lies. If the mystifying glow was created by the annihilation of dark matter, then gamma ray particles would get distributed evenly in space. Instead, they gather together in clumps. That's why, to the great disappointment of numerous supporters, the theory based on the dark matter came up short. There is an alternative explanation of why the Milky Way is glowing. The culprit might be a group of millisecond pulsars, which are neutron stars spinning incredibly fast. And when I say fast, I mean about 1,000 times per second. The theory that the glow is caused by millisecond pulsars is quite plausible. As I mentioned before, the light coming from there is clumpy rather than smooth, and it often happens when the source of light is one individual object, such as a pulsar. Several studies have concluded that, due to the nature of the light, millisecond pulsars are the best explanation for this phenomenon. However, many scientists are still not persuaded. Those stubborn folk want proof, right? Well, first of all, they state that the clumps of light may appear due to the interaction of gas between stars and cosmic rays. Besides, the pulsar theory has one more catch. Why would so many of them be clustered together in a perfect sphere around the center of the Milky Way? Probably the clusters of stars that orbit the Milky Way could have been disrupted by the galaxy's gravity. As a result, these spilled stars, including pulsars, later formed a spherical shell around the center of the Milky Way. But, in fact, the whole picture looks like something completely different from both pulsars and dark matter. It leaves scientists with more questions than answers, and all that's left to do is a lot more research and testing. Are we really by ourselves in the universe? It's a daunting question that's been haunting us for centuries. No wonder scientists have tried to come up with all sorts of ideas as to why. One of the strangest theories concerning our lack of contact with other life forms is named the dark forest theory. Let's start small. Well, sort of. We'll focus on our Milky Way for now to better understand this theory. Our cosmic neighborhood is a galactic wonderland, sprinkled with 200 billion twinkling stars and maybe around 100 billion planets. So let's get hypothetical for a moment and say a tiny part of those habitats hosts life. Further, out of those life-bearing planets, a few might have evolved into intelligent beings. Given that, you'd think we'd be knee-deep in weird-looking neighbors, some of whom might be actively trying to find us or might just be out there, waiting to be discovered. Now, let's put a little science into this science fiction scenario. We have something called the Drake equation, which is a kind of universal roll call that estimates how many smart civilizations could pop up in our galaxy. You can think of this equation as the super smart roadmap. By playing around with a few important factors, the equation hints that there should be around 20 civilizations just in our galactic backyard. So why haven't we stumbled upon any yet? This theory isn't an easy task. It's a mixed bag of multiple variables, like the average number of planets per solar system that could potentially host life, or the rate at which stars suitable for intelligent life are formed. A tricky part here is that astronomers have yet to solidify the exact values of these variables, which means our calculations are just approximations for now. But back to the Milky Way, shall we? Feed in our hypothetical assumptions, crunch the numbers, and you get at least 20 civilizations. Yet somehow, our cosmic switchboard remains weirdly silent. How come? This radio silence has its own name too, the Fermi paradox, named after the guy who first thought, "Hey, where is everybody?" over 50 years ago. Since then, we've had a lot of different theories trying to solve this mystery, all tinkering with different aspects of the Drake equation. Some folks think the appearance of life is a rare event. Others think that getting from bacteria to advanced beings is the tricky part. Yet, some reckon that civilizations might either wipe themselves out after a short lifespan or never even get to invent something they could communicate with. But there's one theory that tops all others in its creepiness: the dark forest theory. According to it, the universe is a huge cosmic version of a haunted forest. And other types of creatures are out there, playing a game of hide and seek. They're intentionally keeping silent. Why? Well, the dark forest theory was best explained in a sci-fi novel, and the rationale goes something like this. For starters, every life form wants to stay alive. I'll buy that. If we go with that assumption, it's impossible to be sure whether other life forms might harm you if they get the chance. So, the safest bet is to take them out before they find the right time to do the same to you. Frankly speaking, it's the universe's version of the survival of the fittest. In this scenario, making contact with others becomes the most dangerous game, as it could lead to your location being traced and you being wiped out. How human. This results in everyone keeping quiet, a kind of universal shush, where every civilization tries to hide in utter cosmic silence. But hey, is this just an idea good for a thrilling novel, or does it have some real-world implications? Well, the theory was suggested by scientist David Brin as a possible explanation for the lack of radio evidence for non-Earth-like life. He went as far as imagining it would be robots that would do the dirty work of wiping out civilizations. But how realistic is this theory anyway? Well, it doesn't require us to assume a lot of stuff about the behavior of all foreign civilizations. Just one advanced race behaving this way could explain our observed reality. And it might explain why we've not picked up any advanced radio chatter despite a century of eavesdropping. It's possible that other creatures like us are too terrified of being noticed and have gone radio silent on purpose. But, and it's a big but, like mine, it does base itself on the notion that other species share our level of risk aversion and logic, or that there's a rogue civilization out there, picking off anyone they perceive as a threat. And that's a pretty significant assumption. If that doesn't sound creepy, this next piece of information certainly will. For about a century now, we've been shouting our existence into the cosmos. If this theory proves to be correct, every other civilization within 100 light-years of us might be getting our signals and knowing exactly where we are. And if we have reasons to hide from them, as suggested by some like Stephen Hawking, we might already be in trouble. But what if this theory isn't true? What if, sooner than we'd like to imagine, weird galactic creatures will indeed try to reach us? The truth is, most of us wouldn't even know what to do. Hey, let's not get over ourselves. In fact, some scientists are tackling this issue head-on. For the first time since the 1980s, specialists are trying to cook up a how-to guide for when we inevitably bump into cosmic neighbors. For instance, some researchers believe we've got to do more than just worry about how these life forms could shake up our world. If they send any type of radio signals down here, we've got to think about our reply. What are we going to say? Hey, we're humans. Nice to meet you. Absolutely not. We've got to do better than that. See, the only plan we've had till now came from a rough blueprint dating from 1989. This guide is a bit wishy-washy on what to do when the entire world gets the outer worldly text. Mostly it says, hey, let's share the news with everyone. But then what? If we confirm it's legit, officials will need to ask the United Nations for advice. But hey, does the United Nations even have a plan? Maybe, who knows? We've been doing loads of space exploring lately. Some say we've stumbled upon water on Mars. Others are sure we've spotted some planets that could be twins to Earth. So, the idea of finding life elsewhere isn't that far-fetched. But even after 100 years of trying to chat with cosmic beings, it's still a one-sided conversation. This new protocol isn't just about chatting up outsiders. It's also going to act as our cosmic voicemail, checking messages from outer space. It aims not just to decode the external lingo. It's also planning to figure out what these messages could mean for us. The plan is also to draft reports about how different policies could impact us and set up guidelines on how to respond to these space texts. So, will we ever get a message from our cosmic mates? Only time will tell. But what we do know is that we just can't wing it. We can't be caught off guard and start a planet-wide frenzy when we get that otherworldly WhatsApp. We gotta have a plan, and we gotta have it ready for when we're face-to-face with the real deal. I mean, we've come across a lot of potential such sightings, but none of them proved to be genuine. On that note, U.S. authorities checked over 100 cases of weird stuff going on in the skies. I'll spare you the details, but not one green creature was ever found. More like drones and similar stuff floating around. So, as we stand on the cusp of this potentially game-changing event, we must strive to be prepared. Whether our intergalactic neighbors drop us a text tomorrow or centuries from now, we need a plan. After all, this could change everything we know about our universe and our place within it. Voyager 1, which has been traveling through interstellar space for more than 45 years and is trailing a long gray beard by this time, not really, it suddenly began to send strange signals to Earth. Even more bizarre, there are no signs that the probe has broken or anything. Scientists from NASA are desperately trying to find the reason. So, what's happened exactly? First of all, let me tell you a bit more about Voyager 1 and its long journey. Voyager 1 is an American space probe. Scientists from NASA sent it into space on September 5, 1977. Voyager's goal was to explore the outer planets of our solar system, namely Jupiter and Saturn. Initially, scientists assumed that the mission would take about 5 years. Haha, the joke's on them. The probe exceeded all expectations. Not only did it fulfill its mission, but it's still working for much longer than expected. Voyager 1 has been wandering around space for more than 45 years. It's hard to estimate what Voyager 1 has done for science. Firstly, it successfully sent a lot of photos of Jupiter and Saturn to Earth. By the way, you can even check out these photos yourself. All of them are published on the NASA website. Thanks to Voyager, we also discovered several new moons of Jupiter and a previously unknown system of its rings. We learned that Jupiter's famous red spot is actually a giant superfast storm. And after leaving Neptune's orbit behind, Voyager also sent a lot of important data about interstellar plasma. So Voyager 1 successfully proved to scientists how useful it was. After that, it happily headed for its next goal, the Kuiper Belt and the heliosphere. The Kuiper Belt is a ring of icy bodies that extends from Neptune to a distance of approximately 50 AU from the Sun. It's kind of similar to the asteroid belt, but about 20 times wider and 100 times heavier. And the heliosphere is an area around the Sun where the pressure of the solar wind is balanced with the pressure of interstellar gas. Yeah, I know, it sounds like some hard scientific stuff. Just keep in mind that this data really helps us understand the universe as a whole. So, this is Voyager's last task, to tell us more about interstellar space. The probe has already sent us more than 60 frames for a mosaic of the solar system from a distance of over 4 billion miles from Earth. Scientists used these frames to make a big colored picture. The photo was called the pale blue dot, and you've probably already guessed what that dot is. Yep, that's what our Earth looks like through Voyager's eyes. This photo clearly shows how tiny we really are, and how precious and fragile our planet is. But Voyager 1 also has another, even more important mission, to tell other civilizations about us humans. You might have heard about the famous Voyager Golden Records. People created many audio and video files and added them to these records. There are a few sections. The first one contains hello in 55 languages, including ancient and extinct ones. Almost 80% of the recordings are different musical pieces, like Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, and Stravinsky, folk music from different countries and ages, and a bit of the blues, like famous songs by Louis Armstrong and Chuck Berry. The remaining 20% of the recordings contain different human voices, sounds of nature and animals, as well as 116 images encoded as audio signals. There's also recordings of speeches by Kurt Waldheim, a former UN Secretary General, and Jimmy Carter, a former US President. These are just some friendly messages. In addition to the records, scientists also packed a needle for playing them. Don't worry, they also left a simple drawing that showed how to use all this stuff and how to translate the sounds into pictures. They added Earth's coordinates, which they created using a pulsar map. It shows the position of the Sun in the Milky Way. The record was packed in an aluminum case and covered with gold to protect it against radiation and cosmic dust. Carrying this record, Voyager 1 set off on its long journey, and it has already traveled quite a distance, I'd say. Right now, Voyager 1 is 154 astronomical units away from us. That's about 14.5 billion miles. This makes it the most remote human-made object. Initially, this title belonged to the Pioneer 10 mission, but Voyager overtook it in 1998. What a bargain for NASA! It's way beyond its best-by date. Voyager 1 is actually so cool that it even overtook its twin brother, Voyager 2, which, by the way, had been sent into space 2 weeks earlier. Voyager 1 moves at a speed of 9.7 miles per second. That's 35,000 miles per hour. Even the fastest sports car in the world travels at a speed of only 305 miles per hour. So it's hard to imagine the speed of Voyager. Anyway, at the moment, Voyager is heading to the borders of the Oort cloud. That's the name of a hypothetical layer of icy objects surrounding the solar system. Astronomers haven't confirmed its existence yet, but they're almost sure it's there. After all, even black holes were only a theory not so long ago. Unfortunately, Voyager 1 won't return back to the solar system. It'll keep in touch with Earth at least until 2025, but eventually we'll lose the connection with it for good. In 300 years, it'll reach the borders of the Oort cloud. And in 30,000 years, I won't be around then, it'll finally leave the solar system. And if nothing happens to it along the way, in another 10,000 years, Voyager 1 will approach red dwarf star Gliese 445 in the Giraffe constellation. In the future, the probe will probably keep wandering around the Milky Way galaxy. And now, let's finally discuss the mysterious signals part. So, what happened? Well, a rather unusual thing. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which monitors and controls both Voyagers, reported this problem in May 2022. Our veteran spacecraft suddenly began sending strange data to Earth. The whole situation puzzles even engineers from NASA. Now, I bet you're thinking, come on, the thing just probably broke down or something. But the truth is that Voyager 1 is totally fine. It works as usual, receives and carries out commands from Earth, and collects and sends scientific data. But the readings of the AACS, which stands for Attitude and Articulation Control Subsystem, don't show what is actually happening to Voyager anymore. This system supports the orientation of the probe in space and helps it keep in touch with Earth. So, basically, the signals mean that the probe's orientation in space is messed up. But scientists claim this is not the case. They know that the source of the antenna signal remains in the same position relative to Earth as planned. The problem hasn't triggered any of the onboard fall protection systems. The probe hasn't even entered safe mode. So, what in the world, or universe, is going on? Suzanne Dodd, the head of the project, says that the problem is not actually that unexpected. After all, Voyager 1 is already 45 years old. The expert admits that what's happening to the probe remains a mystery to them. They don't know exactly where the incorrect data is coming from, and it's unclear how this will affect the operation of Voyager. She adds, though, that it's not that surprising, considering that the probe is in interstellar space. There's a very high level of radiation there. No spacecraft has ever reached that point before. Scientists from NASA say they'll keep closely monitoring the data coming from Voyager 1 until they figure out the problem. If they find it, the management team will try to fix it. Otherwise, the team will have to adapt to the new conditions. It might not be enough just to understand the problem, though. It takes as much as 20 hours and 33 minutes to receive the signal from Voyager, and it takes the same amount of time to respond to it. Well, at least the second spacecraft, Voyager 2, is totally fine, even though it's also currently in interstellar space at a distance of 12 billion miles from Earth. Anyway, we can only wait for news and hope that the problem will be resolved. I actually wonder how much longer can Voyager 1 last? Will it be able to fly to the borders of the Oort cloud in 300 years? What do you think? I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Voyager 1, which has been traveling through interstellar space for more than 45 years and is trailing a long gray beard by this time, not really, it suddenly began to send strange signals to Earth. Even more bizarre, there are no signs that the probe has broken or anything. Scientists from NASA are desperately trying to find the reason. So, what's happened exactly? First of all, let me tell you a bit more about Voyager 1 and its long journey. Voyager 1 is an American space probe. Scientists from NASA sent it into space on September 5, 1977. Voyager's goal was to explore the outer planets of our solar system, namely Jupiter and Saturn. Initially, scientists assumed that the mission would take about 5 years. Haha, the joke's on them. The probe exceeded all expectations. Not only did it fulfill its mission, but it's still working for much longer than expected. Voyager 1 has been wandering around space for more than 45 years. It's hard to estimate what Voyager 1 has done for science. Firstly, it successfully sent a lot of photos of Jupiter and Saturn to Earth. By the way, you can even check out these photos yourself. All of them are published on the NASA website. Thanks to Voyager, we also discovered several new moons of Jupiter and a previously unknown system of its rings. We learned that Jupiter's famous red spot is actually a giant superfast storm. And after leaving Neptune's orbit behind, Voyager also sent a lot of important data about interstellar plasma. So Voyager 1 successfully proved to scientists how useful it was. After that, it happily headed for its next goal, the Kuiper Belt and the heliosphere. The Kuiper Belt is a ring of icy bodies that extends from Neptune to a distance of approximately 50 AU from the Sun. It's kind of similar to the asteroid belt, but about 20 times wider and 100 times heavier. And the heliosphere is an area around the Sun where the pressure of the solar wind is balanced with the pressure of interstellar gas. Yeah, I know, it sounds like some hard scientific stuff. Just keep in mind that this data really helps us understand the universe as a whole. So, this is Voyager's last task, to tell us more about interstellar space. The probe has already sent us more than 60 frames for a mosaic of the solar system from a distance of over 4 billion miles from Earth. Scientists used these frames to make a big colored picture. The photo was called the pale blue dot, and you've probably already guessed what that dot is. Yep, that's what our Earth looks like through Voyager's eyes. This photo clearly shows how tiny we really are, and how precious and fragile our planet is. But Voyager 1 also has another, even more important mission, to tell other civilizations about us humans. You might have heard about the famous Voyager Golden Records. People created many audio and video files and added them to these records. There are a few sections. The first one contains hello in 55 languages, including ancient and extinct ones. Almost 80% of the recordings are different musical pieces, like Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, and Stravinsky, folk music from different countries and ages, and a bit of the blues, like famous songs by Louis Armstrong and Chuck Berry. The remaining 20% of the recordings contain different human voices, sounds of nature and animals, as well as 116 images encoded as audio signals. There's also recordings of speeches by Kurt Waldheim, a former UN Secretary General, and Jimmy Carter, a former US President. These are just some friendly messages. In addition to the records, scientists also packed a needle for playing them. Don't worry, they also left a simple drawing that showed how to use all this stuff and how to translate the sounds into pictures. They added Earth's coordinates, which they created using a pulsar map. It shows the position of the Sun in the Milky Way. The record was packed in an aluminum case and covered with gold to protect it against radiation and cosmic dust. Carrying this record, Voyager 1 set off on its long journey, and it has already traveled quite a distance, I'd say. Right now, Voyager 1 is 154 astronomical units away from us. That's about 14.5 billion miles. This makes it the most remote human-made object. Initially, this title belonged to the Pioneer 10 mission, but Voyager overtook it in 1998. What a bargain for NASA! It's way beyond its best-by date. Voyager 1 is actually so cool that it even overtook its twin brother, Voyager 2, which, by the way, had been sent into space 2 weeks earlier. Voyager 1 moves at a speed of 9.7 miles per second. That's 35,000 miles per hour. Even the fastest sports car in the world travels at a speed of only 305 miles per hour. So it's hard to imagine the speed of Voyager. Anyway, at the moment, Voyager is heading to the borders of the Oort cloud. That's the name of a hypothetical layer of icy objects surrounding the solar system. Astronomers haven't confirmed its existence yet, but they're almost sure it's there. After all, even black holes were only a theory not so long ago. Unfortunately, Voyager 1 won't return back to the solar system. It'll keep in touch with Earth at least until 2025, but eventually we'll lose the connection with it for good. In 300 years, it'll reach the borders of the Oort cloud, and in 30,000 years, I won't be around then, it'll finally leave the solar system. And if nothing happens to it along the way, in another 10,000 years, Voyager 1 will approach red dwarf star Gliese 445 in the Giraffe constellation. In the future, the probe will probably keep wandering around the Milky Way galaxy. And now, let's finally discuss the mysterious signals part. So, what happened? Well, a rather unusual thing. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which monitors and controls both Voyagers, reported this problem in May 2022. Our veteran spacecraft suddenly began sending strange data to Earth. The whole situation puzzles even engineers from NASA. Now, I bet you're thinking, come on, the thing just probably broke down or something. But the truth is that Voyager 1 is totally fine. It works as usual, receives and carries out commands from Earth, and collects and sends scientific data. But the readings of the AACS, which stands for Attitude and Articulation Control Subsystem, don't show what is actually happening to Voyager anymore. This system supports the orientation of the probe in space and helps it keep in touch with Earth. So, basically, the signals mean that the probe's orientation in space is messed up. But scientists claim this is not the case. They know that the source of the antenna signal remains in the same position relative to Earth as planned. The problem hasn't triggered any of the onboard fall protection systems. The probe hasn't even entered safe mode. So, what in the world, or universe, is going on? Suzanne Dodd, the head of the project, says that the problem is not actually that unexpected. After all, Voyager 1 is already 45 years old. The expert admits that what's happening to the probe remains a mystery to them. They don't know exactly where the incorrect data is coming from, and it's unclear how this will affect the operation of Voyager. She adds, though, that it's not that surprising, considering that the probe is in interstellar space. There's a very high level of radiation there. No spacecraft has ever reached that point before. Scientists from NASA say they'll keep closely monitoring the data coming from Voyager 1 until they figure out the problem. If they find it, the management team will try to fix it. Otherwise, the team will have to adapt to the new conditions. It might not be enough just to understand the problem, though. It takes as much as 20 hours and 33 minutes to receive the signal from Voyager, and it takes the same amount of time to respond to it. Well, at least the second spacecraft, Voyager 2, is totally fine, even though it's also currently in interstellar space at a distance of 12 billion miles from Earth. Anyway, we can only wait for news and hope that the problem will be resolved. I actually wonder how much longer can Voyager 1 last? Will it be able to fly to the borders of the Oort cloud in 300 years? What do you think? I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Now, I don't want to spook you, but there's a chance that our entire Milky Way galaxy is located in the so-called space void. It's a region where there's relatively little matter compared to other corners of the known universe, and it's much less dense than it is elsewhere in the universe. In other words, we might exist in an air bubble in a cake. If that's true, it would mean that we're even lonelier than we thought. In our universe, all the galaxies are constantly moving away from each other. In order to understand how far they move away, scientists use something called the Hubble-Lemaitre constant. It's like a speedometer, but for galaxies. However, there's a cosmic mystery called the Hubble tension. It's challenging what we know about the universe's expansion. Scientists used to consider the Hubble-Lemaitre constant a reliable guide, but our recent observations question this reliability. The speeds we see in real life don't match up with the distances we calculated and expected. They aren't sure why these measurements don't add up. Researchers followed the moves of supernovas and saw that the universe seems to expand faster around us than it does overall, as if it's actively avoiding us specifically. After considering this, they began to assume that we might all live in a cosmic void. Cosmic voids are vast empty spaces between galaxies, kind of like between my ears. They make our entire world look like a big sponge. Now let's go back to the beginning, just a fraction of a second after the Big Bang. Right after the beginning of everything, the universe was a hot compressed plasma. It only had very tiny variations in density, called quantum fluctuations. After the Big Bang, the universe began to expand. Those quantum fluctuations grew together with it, creating regions of varying matter density. Because of that, the universe didn't expand everywhere uniformly. Instead, little claps of matter began to gather together over a long period of time, creating massive structures, galaxies. Galaxies are arranged in huge walls and filaments, with enormous gaps in between. And these gaps are voids, also known as dark space. Now, these voids aren't truly empty. In fact, they actually hold more than 15% of the amount of matter found on average throughout the entire universe. They still contain gas, dust, dark matter, and even stars and galaxies. However, they have less density than regions with galaxies, about a tenth of the average matter density, which is why we consider them nearly empty. Usually, they'll have a diameter ranging from about 30 to 300 million light-years. That is an enormous distance, even on a space scale. For comparison, most planets and nebulas we've found so far have a distance of hundreds and rarely thousands of light-years away from us. In the case of voids, if you were in the middle of one, it would just look like seemingly eternal darkness. The closest stars would be so far away that they would be almost invisible to you. Some of them are especially large. They're known as supervoids. The largest known one was creatively named Giant Void. It's so big, it's impossible for us to even imagine. 1.5 billion light-years away, with a diameter of 1 to 1.3 billion light-years. Yeah, it's basically a big dark vacuum. But even this giant vacuum isn't entirely empty. The Giant Void houses 17 separate galaxy clusters within its expanse. However, it might not be the biggest emptiness in our universe. There's this thing called the CMB cold spot. It's this unusually large and chilly area of our universe that we saw through the microwaves. It really stood out on the map of our universe with its unexpectedly low temperatures, and scientists have spent many years trying to figure out what the thing is. In 2015, scientists proposed that this place might be a supervoid, and probably the largest one ever. Being even more original with this one, they called it the Great Void. If it's true, this place would be an emptiness of about 1.8 billion light-years in diameter, about 1,000 times larger than typical voids. Not everyone thinks that's possible, so scientists keep arguing over this one. There's another interesting theory going about this place. One researcher suggested that this place might have been a trace on our collision with a parallel world. It's a pretty bold hypothesis, but unfortunately, there's no way for us to confirm or deny it with our current technologies. In any case, as the universe expands, these voids will grow, and the walls connecting galaxy clusters will stretch and break. Eventually, the voids will merge, leaving gravitationally bound galaxy clusters as islands in the expanding emptiness. In other words, sooner or later, the great emptiness will consume everything in our world. So, it turns out we might be a rare occasion in a supervoid, one of the 15% of matter. This would explain why we're surrounded by relatively few galaxies. This discovery, if true, challenges the standard model of cosmology which we created with Albert Einstein's help. It would mean that gravity in general behaves differently than what we expected. According to the standard model, such a significant underdensity shouldn't exist. Because of that, scientists will have to explore and consider this idea thoroughly. It might just challenge our very basic understanding of physics. The scientists call this the local hole. The discovery of the local hole may hold clues to explaining the Fermi paradox. Maybe in this specific part of the universe, where we hang out, the chance of intelligent life developing anywhere nearby is very low. Perhaps all of the sentient beings hang out somewhere beyond our supervoid. But that doesn't mean we should lose hope, or that life anywhere nearby is impossible. In fact, life in the universe might be much more common than we previously thought. We know that the inner planets, like Mercury and Venus, are inhospitable due to extreme conditions. However, Venus looks interesting because even though it's a crazy toxic planet, scientists believe that it was very Earth-like in the past. It could have even hosted life. Unfortunately, it was too close to the Sun and all the nice conditions evaporated over time. But there's a possibility of microbial life surviving in its high-altitude clouds. Mars, a cold desert, also might have been a friendlier place in the past with rivers and lakes. Though now it lacks a protective atmosphere, ancient life might have existed there. In that case, it would leave potential fossils and underground microbes could still survive. We've discovered some signs of them, but are still debating whether this stuff was truly organic or not. The gas giants, like Jupiter and Saturn, and ice giants are not ideal for life, but their moons offer hope. Europa has an ocean beneath its icy surface, making it a potential hotspot. Enceladus releases water into space, carrying complex molecules that hint at interesting possibilities. And Titan is especially unique. It has liquid bodies on its surface, rivers and lakes of hydrocarbons. While its frigid temperatures aren't great for life, scientists ponder if it might host life with a different kind of chemistry. However, it will take us decades to check all these celestial bodies and study them properly. We haven't sent anything so far since the times of Voyager 2, but if we're lucky, we might explore our solar system during the 21st century. In any case, there's a lot of potential for life even in our solar system alone, not even mentioning all the planets and galaxies we found nearby. Our estimates suggest that the observable universe, the one we can see, might host around 5.3 trillion habitable worlds. One of the most likely candidates so far is Kepler 186f. It's a potential Earth-like planet, just 10% larger than Earth. This planet orbits a red dwarf star, which is a star a bit dimmer, colder, but more long-living than our Sun. And it's only about 490 light-years away, which may sound like a lot, but remember what distances we've discussed with supervoids. So even if we really are in a supervoid, we're still lucky to have many galaxies and planets around. And if one day we'll find a way to travel through the universe, leaving the local hole probably wouldn't be a problem. Now, think about the vastness of the universe. Our galaxy contains between 100 and 400 billion stars. Many of them can potentially host planets. Many of those planets might have water in them and be capable of supporting life. And this is just the Milky Way alone. What's the likelihood of other intelligent civilizations existing out there? Well, there's a famous formula called the Drake equation. It's a mathematical tool to guess how many civilizations from outer space might be able to talk to us in our Milky Way galaxy. It was made by a scientist named Frank Drake in 1961. Here are the variables in it. N is the number of civilizations we could potentially talk to in our galaxy. R star is how fast new stars are born in our galaxy. F sub p is the fraction of stars with planets around them. N sub e is the average number of planets around each star that could support life. F sub L is the fraction of those planets where life might actually start. F sub I is the fraction of planets with life that could become smart civilizations. F sub c is the fraction of smart civilizations that send signals into space. And L is how long those civilizations keep sending signals. Of course, we won't get an exact number like this. It's more like an educated guess, and we don't have any answer to that. But based on at least some information we know, there might be around 100 million worlds where life should have evolved. But if that's the case, then why haven't we met or heard from anyone? This is called the Fermi paradox. It's named after the famous physicist Enrico Fermi. He asked a simple but very important question: where is everybody? Our universe should be filled with chatty extraterrestrial beings, advanced civilizations, and spaceships zipping around. Yet, when we look up at the night sky or listen with our radio telescopes and antennas, it's eerily quiet. All we get is the so-called Great Silence of the universe. Scientists from Oxford University's Future of Humanity Institute are trying to answer this question. And they're not the only ones. A group called METI, for Messaging Extraterrestrial Intelligence, organized a workshop in Paris in 2019 to explore this mystery. The workshop brought together experts from various fields, like astrophysics, biology, psychology, and so on. One of the ideas discussed is called the zoo hypothesis. It suggests that perhaps other civilizations do exist, but they're simply not broadcasting their presence. Maybe they know that making direct contact with us could be risky for both sides. So they're intentionally avoiding us, because they're watching us like observing a zoo. They could be using advanced technology we can't detect. There are also some optimistic explanations, like time delays. Space, as you know, is unimaginably big. The time it takes for signals or information to travel across the universe is enormous. It's possible that other civilizations exist, but their signals haven't reached us yet, or ours haven't reached them. But some explanations aren't very optimistic. Like, some scientists think Earth might really be unique. Maybe the conditions that led to life and intelligent beings are so incredibly rare that there are no other planets like ours. Scientists point out that there are many planets similar to Earth, and some are much older. This means there should be plenty of planets where life could evolve. Recent research also suggests that life might be way more resilient than we thought. And, well, while it increases the amount of life existing out there, it also increases the chances that intelligent life doesn't last very long. It might destroy itself before it can spread to other parts of the universe. This is a concerning idea for the future of humanity. The researchers also considered that many planets might be at a similar stage in their development. That's why it's hard for them to explore the universe at the same time. But even they agreed that this explanation is way too far-fetched. And finally, one of the big potential explanations is called the Great Filter. This idea was suggested in the 1990s by Robin Hanson. It says that for life to develop and become advanced like us, it has to overcome some really tough challenges. First of all, the planet itself should have a good stable star and good enough conditions on it. Then life has to start on that planet. These life forms need to be able to reproduce using things like DNA. Simple cells must evolve into more complex cells. More complex organisms with multiple cells must develop. And eventually, these organisms must figure out how to reproduce, which increases genetic diversity. And finally, these organisms must be smart enough to use tools, create, and explore things. Finally, they should colonize other planets and star systems without destroying themselves. And maybe one of these stages is so incredibly hard that most civilizations don't make it past that point. This challenge could be something like developing intelligence in the first place, or it might be the struggle to avoid self-destruction. So, perhaps life isn't rare at all, but most of it doesn't go beyond simple tiny organisms like bacteria. Even if the universe is full of bacteria, they don't become advanced enough to build spaceships. The Great Filter might also be something from outside, like a huge asteroid crashing into a planet, a dangerous burst of gamma rays, or a massive star going supernova. These events could destroy life on any planet, no matter how advanced they are. So, if we've already passed this challenge, it means we could be the only ones in the universe and we can explore it. But if we suddenly hear from a super advanced civilization, it could mean the hard part of the challenge is still ahead of us. Now, the Fermi paradox focuses on intelligent civilizations. It just implies that there should be civilizations more advanced than us, or at least as intelligent as us. But if you think about it, why should extraterrestrial life be similar to ours at all? It might be completely different for many important reasons. Life elsewhere might have developed under completely unique conditions. This could lead to forms of intelligence and consciousness very unlike our own. For example, it could have evolved into highly advanced forms that aren't based on biology as we know it. These beings could exist as energy-based entities, silicon-based life forms, or even as a hive mind. And because they have evolved completely differently, they may be capable of things that we aren't capable of. For example, we can't see the entire light spectrum. Our eyes also can't perceive cool things like dark matter. But who knows what the vision of extraterrestrial beings may be capable of? Their abilities might even extend beyond our three-dimensional perception. They might be able to perceive and interact with higher dimensions, which is why they could have unique, interesting insights into the nature of our world. Or maybe they've learned to think outside of time, like in the movie Arrival. For us, we still haven't met them, but for extraterrestrial beings themselves, the concept of time doesn't exist at all. They're simultaneously in the past, present, and future. For humans, something like this is hard to even imagine. Plus, even on Earth, we don't fully grasp how consciousness works or why it exists. We're not even sure when exactly we became conscious. So even if we do encounter extraterrestrial life, it will be hard for us to understand them or communicate with them. We think that they might have entirely different language systems, symbols, and so on, but they might not even have any communication systems at all. As you can see, the possibilities are endless. Evolution is a process that can go in many different directions. It's possible that extraterrestrial life developed in ways we can't easily understand or even imagine. These things are intriguing to think about. There are still no easy answers. The Fermi paradox remains one of the most exciting and mystery questions in science. Scientists continue to explore these mysteries through a multidisciplinary approach. They're hoping to find clues that could lead to breakthroughs in our understanding of alien intelligence. And until we find a definitive answer, we can keep sparking our curiosity and imagination.
It's dark and incredibly cold. There's no oxygen. There's no water. There's no life. But the James Webb Space Telescope doesn't seem bothered by all this. Its main goal is to find the very first galaxies that formed billions of years ago in the early universe and observe the stars making up distant planetary systems. Its mission is to… But wait, what is that? The James Webb Space Telescope has discovered something absolutely amazing. A star-planet hybrid with very strange clouds. This bizarre world called VHS 1256b is actually a brown dwarf. Those are bigger than planets, but too small to classify as stars. They emit some light of their own and are quite hot, but their mass is simply not enough to fuse hydrogen into helium, like full-fledged stars do. Space bodies of this kind aren't actually brown. They occur in a wide variety of colors, but those are mostly invisible to the human eye. What we can see is the light they emit, and to us it appears to be dark orange or magenta. The brown dwarf we're talking about is almost 20 times the size of Jupiter. It orbits 2 red dwarf stars. And to complete one orbit, the brown dwarf needs 17,000 years. In fact, astronomers found out about this unusual exoplanet in 2016. But at that time, they didn't classify it as a brown dwarf, and thus couldn't explain its puzzling reddish glow. Now, thanks to the James Webb Telescope, they know the space object's origin. Anyway, back to those clouds. As you know, clouds on Earth are made of water vapor, but those on the brown dwarf are different. They seem to be made of sand. It looks like good old sand from Earth, but it's actually not. The clouds are made of tiny particles of silicate. Scientists have been putting forward theories about the existence of such sand clouds on exoplanets for quite some time. But the discovery the James Webb Space Telescope made is the first real proof. The silicate particles on the sandy dwarf are most likely quartz or some other mineral. In size, they're less than a micron, and 1 micron is 1/25th of a thousandth of an inch. In other words, they look like particles in smog. The exoplanet seems to have an atmosphere which contains some water, methane, and other substances and minerals. Interestingly, this atmosphere isn't still. It's constantly undergoing extreme changes. Another cool thing about it, scientists have detected carbon dioxide. And this is only the second confirmed discovery of this gas on a planet outside the solar system. By the way, the James Webb Space Telescope, with the help of which astronomers discovered our sandy brown dwarf, is an absolutely stunning piece of equipment. Around 100 times more powerful than Hubble. Even though the telescope itself is 3 stories high and its size equals that of a tennis court, its mirrors are the lightest large telescope mirrors of all time. When all the 18 mirrors of the telescope were completed during the manufacturing process, their mass was reduced by 92% in comparison to the initial discs. Each mirror weighed a mere 44 pounds. The telescope's mirrors seem to be gold, but in reality, they're made of beryllium, steel gray, lightweight, and brittle metal. There is indeed a gold coating on each mirror, but they can't be produced entirely out of gold since this material tends to expand and contract even with small temperature changes. That's why the total amount of gold in the James Webb Space Telescope is less than 2 ounces. James Webb's telescope side is cooling itself down, and its temperature doesn't rise higher than -370 degrees Fahrenheit. That's cool enough to make liquid nitrogen. A truly enormous 5-layered sun shield stretches around the telescope and reflects away as much sunlight as possible, letting the telescope stay cool. The telescope was launched near the equator because Earth spins a bit faster there, and this gave the rocket some extra push. The telescope orbits the Sun more than 1 million miles away from Earth, and when it runs out of fuel, it'll keep orbiting the Sun indefinitely. On the other hand, even though the telescope wasn't actually designed to be serviced or upgraded, it might potentially be refueled with the help of robots. This would extend its life. Anyway, if you think that our newly founded brown dwarf is the only bizarre exoplanet out there, let me show you some other breathtaking worlds. There is an exoplanet that is really something else. Just look at its awesome magenta color. You can find it in the Virgo constellation. The planet is called Gliese 504b. It orbits very far from its parent star, 9 times the distance between the Sun and Jupiter. The planet formed relatively recently and is still glowing with heat. That's why its surface looks pinkish. One of the oldest exoplanets we know about is about 12.7 billion years old. It's almost 3 times as old as Earth. This also means that the so-called Genesis planet formed only about 1 billion years after the Big Bang. The planet is so old that its 2 parent stars have had enough time to evolve into a white star and a pulsar, making almost 100 revolutions per second. I bet sunrises on this planet must look awesome. Just 20 light-years away from the Sun, which isn't such a great distance when we talk about space, a bizarre rogue planet is roaming the Milky Way galaxy. But even though this planet doesn't orbit any star, it still has an incredibly powerful magnetic field. It's 4 million times stronger than Earth's. The exoplanet also produces amazing auroras. That's why when it was discovered in 2016, astronomers were almost sure they had detected a brown dwarf. But later, scientists got some proof that this space object wasn't big enough to be a brown dwarf. The planet sure is a mammoth among its peers. It's 1.2 times as wide as the largest planet in the solar system, Jupiter, and more than 12 times as heavy. Astronomers think the exceptionally strong magnetic field helps the planet produce auroras. But the most curious thing is that they're generated in a different way than auroras on Earth. It might be because the exoplanet's moon helps the planet create mesmerizing light shows. The next exoplanet isn't like any other. It's often called Super Saturn or Saturn on steroids. That's because J1407b has a colossal system of rings. They're 640 times as large as those our Saturn has. This bizarre world is the only planet we know about that has rings similar to Saturn's. If you moved this giant to our solar system and used it to replace Saturn, its rings would look many times larger than a full moon. An exoplanet called WASP-12b munches on the light coming from its star. It's one of the darkest worlds people know about. All because its day side consumes light rather than reflects it back into space. The egg-shaped planet is giant, twice the size of Jupiter, and it traps more than 94% of the light that reaches its atmosphere. It might be the main reason for the temperatures on the surface of the planet that can rise up to 4,600 degrees Fahrenheit. The night side of the planet isn't as hot as its day side, a mere 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit. The difference in temperature makes water vapor and clouds gather above the surface of the planet. And from time to time, swirls of material from the planet's superheated atmosphere spills onto its star. What a view! Discovered in 2017, KELT 9b is one of the hottest exoplanets we know of. The temperatures there can reach 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit. For comparison, the temperatures at the surface of the Sun reach 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The planet is probably so insanely hot because it orbits extremely close to its star, KELT 9, which is way hotter and bigger than our Sun. Experts believe that the giant star might one day evaporate the entire planet.
In the heart of the galaxy, there lies a mysterious object, the likes of which no astronomer has ever seen. It streaks across the sky like a shooting star on caffeine. So, what is this mysterious blob? And how is it related to the black hole in the center of our galaxy? Let's find out. This thing is called X7. It's the mysterious blob that's been hanging around our galaxy's supermassive black hole for decades. Some even say it's been lurking around there for, like, hundreds of years. We know a few things about X7. For example, it weighs around 50 times as much as Earth. It may sound like a lot if you're an Earthling, but in space, that's like a tiny drop in the ocean. X7 is also moving pretty fast, at speeds of up to 700 miles per second. That's faster than you trying to catch the last slice of pizza before your roommate gets to it. But what in the world is this thing? A magic star we've never seen before? An extraterrestrial spaceship? Well, there are some theories connected to the blob's future tragic fate. Unfortunately, X7's days are numbered. Right now, it's on a 170-year-long elliptical orbit around the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way. But it's not going to make it that far. Each year, it's spiraling closer and closer to the black hole. In just a few years, it will become spaghettified. Yes, that's a real scientific term. And finally get sucked in, never to be seen again. There are supermassive black holes in the centers of all galaxies, including our very own Milky Way. These black holes are so massive that they warp space-time, causing nearby stars to orbit around them at incredible speeds. They serve as cosmic vacuum cleaners that suck in anything and everything that comes close enough. The black hole in our galaxy is called the Sagittarius A star. Sounds like the name of a fancy Hollywood celebrity, doesn't it? But this celestial object is far more impressive than any mere mortal. It's about 4 million times more massive than our sun, which means it could probably eat our entire solar system for breakfast. But don't worry, these black holes may seem really scary, but in reality, they're too small to compete with an entire galaxy. They'll just suck in a couple of the nearest stars, and that's all. Also, Sagittarius A star doesn't seem to have a very good appetite. It's been observed to be pretty quiet lately, which is good news for us. But even if it were super greedy, it wouldn't pose any threat to us. This black hole is over 26,000 light years away. From Earth, we can see it in the Sagittarius constellation. In 2022, the Event Horizon Telescope collaboration released the first ever image of Sagittarius A star. It took years of collaboration and technology to capture this stunning image. And this is our second photo of a black hole in history. The first one was released in 2019, and it showed the supermassive black hole called M87 star. Yes, they both have star in their names. Don't try to make it make sense. Anyway, you may remember this photo as the first ever image of a black hole ever. It went crazy viral across the internet. And this black hole, M87 star, located in the Messier 87 galaxy, is way scarier than Sagittarius A star. You thought 4 million solar masses is impressive? Then how about 2.5 billion solar masses? M87 is a real monster. It's also known for its powerful jets of plasma, which are so energetic that they extend thousands of light years from the black hole's center. If M87 were a superhero, it would be Iron Man, with his repulsor beams on full blast. Now technically, you can't take a photo of a black hole itself, since it's, well, black. No light can escape its grasp. But the glowing orange ring in this photo shows the matter surrounding Sagittarius A star. It's called the accretion disk, a swirling disk of hot gas that spirals the center, heating up to millions of degrees in the process. It's like a giant fiery vortex, but with no escape. And the shadow in the center indicates the black hole itself. Inside that shadow, there's an event horizon. The event horizon is the boundary around the black hole, beyond which nothing, not even light, can escape its gravitational pull. It's the point of no return, where the gravitational force is so strong that even the fastest object in the universe, light, can't escape. Once you cross the event horizon, you're doomed to fall toward the center of the black hole, where the laws of physics as we know them break down. And this is exactly the fate that awaits our unfortunate X7. Right now, the pure blob is getting stretched and yanked by powerful tidal forces. By the way, before it meets its untimely demise, X7 is expected to put on a bit of a show. Its closest approach to the black hole, called periastron, is projected to happen in 2036. And when it finally gets torn apart by the Sagittarius A star's gravitational forces, there may be some cool fireworks to see. But this is not the most important thing. The funny part is, X7's future end may help us finally understand what the heck even is this thing. A team of scientists have been studying how a strange blob orbits the black hole. And that's when they discovered that X7 has stretched to almost twice its initial length. And what does that mean? Well, it suggests that X7 is most likely made of debris ejected during a recent collision between two stars. Yep, you heard that right, a space car crash. Imagine this. Two stars fall in love and start circling each other for many years. After that, they finally merge together. At this moment, they eject tons of gas and dust. And perhaps this cosmic dance created our blob baby, X7. It's basically like the crumbs left on the table after a giant space feast. Something like this is actually pretty common, especially around black holes. It's like a galactic fender bender that sends debris flying everywhere. Actually, the universe is full of mystery blobs. They're called the G objects. No, they're not the G-men from Men in Black, but they're just as mysterious and elusive. These guys have been puzzling astronomers for more than 20 years. They look like gas clouds, but behave like stars. It's like they can't decide whether they want to be a cloud or a star. Come on, guys, make up your mind. G objects stretch out at the closest point to the central black hole, but emerge intact, like a rubber band that stretches but doesn't break. Scientists think that they're the stars that have merged together into one. And while doing that, they also produce a huge cloud of gas that hides the result from view. Kinda like when you're wearing a bulky sweater, so that no one knows that you've put on a few extra pounds. And then a study published in 2021 found that one of these objects, G2, was actually a molecular cloud concealing 3 baby stars. Talk about a plot twist. But X7 is the black sheep of the strange blob family. It's significantly different from the G objects, like the weird cousin you see once a year at family gatherings. Its evolution has been more dramatic. Also, it's not being held together by a mass lurking in its center. So what is it being held together by? Pixie dust? Magic? We need answers! That's why scientists believe that X7 isn't a G object itself, but debris left from it. Or maybe not. We have no idea. The possibilities are endless, and that's what makes astronomy so exciting. So let's keep our eyes on the skies and see what other strange objects are out there. Who knows? Maybe we'll discover another mystery blob, and this time it's going to be a spaceship. Now that would be awesome. You're in your galactic space cruiser on your way to Outpost 52, delivering supplies for the small colony there, when alarms begin going off. You scan your displays, but something catches your eye before you can work out what's happening. You don't need a view screen, as the front section of your ship is transparent, like a one-way mirror. A colossal orange and purple cloud is sweeping towards you. There's no time to analyze it. You put the ship into a dive, as steep as it will go. The alarms go crazy, but you're too focused on getting out of danger. The ship rattles, and you think it will break up, but your ship is fast and powerful, and somehow you manage to get underneath it. You look up and see the gigantic plasma cloud go soaring past. Curiosity has bitten you, and you decide to follow it. You program your computer to analyze it. Soon the information is coming back, and you can't believe what it's telling you. This plasma cloud is a wrecker of galaxies. It and others like it have been ending galaxies before their time. You recall your studies back on Earth when you were just a young pilot. There have been studies as far back as the 21st century as to why galaxies were mysteriously ceasing the formation of new stars, causing them to end ultimately. Stars form from thick clouds of gas that have become extremely cold. They condense and, over time, collapse into solid compact matter. There's a famous photograph taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. Most people have seen it. It's called the Pillars of Creation. It's the Eagle Nebula, where stars are forming. They call these environments star nurseries. It's a pretty cute concept if you think about it. But there's a bad guy lurking, and you're following it. It's a vast star wrecker. The wrecker rushes in and sweeps the gas out of these star-forming galaxies at an accelerated rate, preventing stars from forming in the first place. It's like a giant broom. But rather than cleaning up, it's ceasing up, bringing new galaxies to a premature end. Now that you know how dangerous it is, it's best to hang back a bit. Let's see if we can see it in action from a safe distance. It had been a long-standing mystery why some galaxies don't birth new stars. The star wrecker is smart. It hangs around large galaxy clusters. There's one in particular, the Virgo cluster. This is the one that scientists studied and came across the star wrecker. The nearby Virgo cluster is 7 million light-years across and contains thousands of galaxies. When I say nearby, it's about 65 million light-years from us. Not exactly a weekend space cruise away, but it's pretty close in galactic terms. The cluster hurtles through the superheated plasma at speeds of up to 1,000,000 miles per hour. The cluster forms the basis for the large Virgo supercluster, of which the local group, where our Milky Way resides, is a member. Its proximity to us makes it easier for scientists to study. It's also one of the most extreme regions of the universe that we know of, currently. Who knows what else is out there? The Virgo cluster is also unusual, as it's still forming new stars, and we can observe them, such as in the famous Hubble nursery photo. A galaxy in this cluster is called the Messier 87. It was discovered way back in 1781 by a French astronomer named Charles Messier. It looked a bit fuzzy to him, so he called it a nebula without stars. More information on what it was couldn't be ascertained until the 1920s. Messier was well respected and in his lifetime discovered 13 comets. He was born in rural France, the 10th of 12 children. When he was 14, he witnessed a tremendous six-tailed comet in 1744. It was astonishing and was visible to the naked eye for several months. Its effects were dramatic and unusual. It was so bright that it's been recorded as the 6th brightest in history. 4 years later, young Charles saw a solar eclipse from his hometown on the 25th of July, 1748. He knew then that he wanted to explore the world of astronomy. It was meant to be. A lunar crater and an asteroid have been named after him. Nothing is mighty, however, like the Messier 87, or M87. It's a supergiant elliptical galaxy with trillions of stars. It's the second brightest galaxy within the northern Virgo cluster, making it popular amongst astronomers and amateur enthusiasts. Elliptical galaxies are older, low-mass stars with minimal star formation activity. Large numbers of globular clusters surround them. They make up roughly 10 to 15% of the Virgo supercluster. M87 has a supermassive black hole at its core. The black hole was photographed using data collected in 2017 by the Event Horizon Telescope, EHT. It was announced excitedly to the world in 2019. In March 2021, the EHT collaboration revealed a polarized-based image of the black hole for the first time. It was a pretty exciting event. It was the first time that a black hole had been captured. It happened all thanks to the Event Horizon Telescope, which is many radio observatories or radio telescope facilities around the world, all working together to produce a highly sensitive and high-resolution telescope. Another array of telescopes in Chile is called the Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array, ALMA. They captured high-resolution images of the 51 significant galaxies in the Virgo cluster. That's part of how we know what we know. M87 and other galaxies don't appear to be doing a lot to the naked eye. In fact, in a typical human lifetime, they barely move at all. Yet they are made up of gas, dust, and other objects that move through space at high speeds. They move when affected by the gravity of other galaxies, or dark matter, a mysterious entity that is 5 times more common than ordinary matter. Many galaxies, including our own, are believed to have a halo of dark matter surrounding them. The dark matter can pull more significantly on the smaller galaxies outside the clusters. As the galaxy gets dragged around through space, the star wrecker may come across. Giant clouds of intergalactic plasma, a form of electric gas, can behave like an atmosphere and drain the gas inside the galaxy. It sweeps out the gas inside the galaxy, stripping it of what it needs to make stars. It's hard to grasp the scale of this sort of activity, but that's what scientists now believe has been occurring to some galaxies or the nebulae without stars, as Charles Messier saw it. Now, let's park our space cruiser here and watch this thing in action. What we've been calling star wrecking is known as gas stripping. It's one of the most spectacular and violent external events in space. A scientist from the National Research Council of Canada said that galaxies are moving so fast through hot plasma in the cluster that a vast quantity of cold molecular gas is stripped from the galaxy. It's as though the gas is being swept away by a giant cosmic industrial blower. It's not the sort of clean-out we want to happen in our galaxy. You observe it in action. You're impressed, but equally respectful of its great power. The gas stripping, also known as ram pressure stripping, travels through many galaxies and removes a star-forming gas. The process is very efficient. The gas is behaving differently from the clouds in our galaxy. They aren't forming as many stars as they are in ours. A 21st century study found that the same process happens in smaller groups of only a few galaxies, with much less dark matter. The study looked at a staggering 10,567 satellite galaxies. These are galaxies that exist beyond the enormous galaxy clusters. Most galaxies in the universe exist in between 2 and 100 galaxies. They were able to study such a large number by using stacking. It makes it possible to learn about a collection of faint objects by combining all the information from the objects and making an average characteristic. They ultimately determined that gas stripping, or star wrecking, is potentially the main way that galaxies, predominantly star formation, are shut down by their surroundings. Pretty unfortunate to have such a nasty neighbor. So, now that your curiosity has been satisfied, it's best to leave this plasma cloud and get on with your journey to Outpost 52. You're going to be late now and could be in a whole lot of trouble. While the cruiser turns around, we'll head back to Earth. And back in time, back to 1744, to that night in rural France, where a teenager stood outside, marveling at the night sky and the spectacular vista of the six-tailed comet. And from that moment, was inspired to begin a lifelong quest based on a single question, perhaps the ultimate of all: what's out there?